Another demo of RESTpoint. This one we're going to be working on iteration 3. In our last iteration, we showed how you can modify the resources, use data types, and start to get change the data. The database is automatically updated, and then send out for another review. So we sent that out to our users, and now we got some new feedback that we want to add in. So to start, our customer said we actually want another path, one that said we also want a list of all the stocks. So we have our portfolios with stocks, but we do want a list because I want to be able to fetch all the stocks that are being used in portfolios. So we said, okay, let's add that in there. And because my stock was already added, I can just reuse that same resource. And I'm going to create a stocks. It's going to return a collection, and I'm going to click save. So there's now my collection for stocks, and you'll see there's my stocks. And right now we don't have anything in it now. There's just some sample data that was created by default, but I'm going to remove that first one, and I'm going to add a stock. So because we're adding this in the middle here, we already have a couple, and you'll see we have one is Tesla, and one is Amazon, and 2 is Tesla. So let's add those 2 in right quick. So one is Amazon, AMZN, Amazon, and country, USA, and NASDAQ. And I'm going to add that in there. And now I'm going to add one more here, which is going to be the ID of 2. And we're going to call it TSLA, Tesla. TSLA, and we add that in, and now we have our 2 stocks. We're kind of in sync. We have these now locked up. So now as I add stocks, so now we sort of want to make this for the customer to get a real feel for it now. We want to make this a little more realistic than just having data, because if I just add a stock now, and then if I add a stock to a portfolio, I sort of want to make sure it's added into stocks. So it now starts getting a little, okay, how do we really want this to work? And this is the great thing about prototyping APIs. So we're going to propose something to the customer that first they will add stocks into our list of stocks, and then when we add a stock to our portfolio, it must exist in our stocks. Now, another thing we could do is just, when we added a stock to our portfolio, automatically add it into stocks. So we have to sort that out. But for now, let's say we're going to tell a customer that stocks have to first be put in there, and our business logic is portfolios, you can only add stocks that were in the list of approved stocks to use. So let's go with that business logic. If it changes, we can always change accordingly. So let's go to our stocks path here. Now we're going to add some business logic. So let's go in here and say, when a stock is added, as in a post is called, a post on stocks. First of all, I want to validate that there is, I'm going to pick the default here. I'm going to make sure that a stock name must be specified. I don't want stocks in here that aren't accurate. And then I also want to check to make sure that there's not a stock by that name already in. Well, let's do this first because it gets too complicated. All right, so the first thing we want to do, I'm going to add a comment here that says check that a stock name is provided when adding a new stock to our list. So I'm going to click update because we do have to update right now on a test. Now on the test, if I just sent this empty stuff, let's say someone used our API and just sent this, what's going to happen? And you'll see stock name must be specified. Okay, great. We're going to do that. So that rule is in there. So to give an example, what that would look like is I can go and try it end-to-end on my try API, right? Which I already have this in here. If I was to come in and do a post portfolio, and I had all empty fields, All right, and I click execute on the post, you'll see here that, let's see, post required manager, we have the business logic name, and that worked actually. All right, let's go back here. On our portfolio, we have, oh, we didn't hit save, did we? I thought we did. Let me check here. So I'm going to click on validate input. That was a bad miss by me. Sorry about that. I'm going to say must specify a portfolio name. So portfolio name is this. Portfolio name must be specified. We update our business logic. And when I click test, I click that, it says that. That's in a post on portfolios, right? Oh, that was the problem. I went to the wrong list. We were working on stocks. So let's go back there. I'm going to go back to stocks. It wasn't portfolios that we were working at, and since we added our new path, let's get a new version of this. Okay. Well, these are working sessions where this shows you how development is. All right, so portfolios, portfolio stocks. So that's where our post was. Let's go here. Now I'm going to say try it out, where we said the name was empty. I'm going to put everything empty here right now, because we're going to eventually put stuff in. So I'm going to click post, and now you're going to say, oh, stock name must be specified. So that's working. Now you can imagine, if I come back to my logic, I can do validations on all of the properties. I can check, but we're just going to use the one name for now as the one to check. But let's say also, I want to make sure that we check for duplicate IDs, or duplicate names, let's say. If the stock name already exists, let's not allow that to be added. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to insert and say, check that stock doesn't already exist. So stocks, the collection that we're currently in is called stocks, and that's called collection. Object is assigned the value of the request body. So when I do a post on stocks, the request body is called object, but I assigned it to stock just to make it easier to read. Same thing here. When I go to run, this collection is really the stocks. So let's just call it stocks. And we don't need, do we need the stock object? We've already used that. Now these are helpers. They're you edit them as you need them. So we're going to say get stocks if there is an object with a name with the stock name. If it's not there, and in this case, we're going to change this a little bit and say, if the item is there, we're going to say stock name, and I'm going to say stock blah already exists. So you see how we use the script helper and then we modify it to what we need. Test. So I know I have a Amazon ticker symbol right now. Oh, but we needed to have the name, wasn't it? It wasn't the ticker. The ticker probably makes more sense. Let's do this. We're going to say stock ticker because that's the main key in a stock exchange. So the stock.ticker, and then we're going to say here stock.ticker already exists. So I'm going to say AMZN. Now when we do a test, stock name must be specified. Oh, whoops. Yes, I have to do that, don't I? Amazon. And now stock 1 already exists. All right, well, let's change that. And then if I go to create a different ID, let's say 5. So that shouldn't happen because we don't want, so because that worked, that means there's something wrong. So let's go take a look. Stocks, If we look in our database right now, we have a ticker called AMZN. That's in stock. All right, so let's go back here. What did we do wrong? If we have, oh, that's why, darn it. Ticker. Because we don't want that ticker to be called that. So ticker name is AMZN. The name, let's give it a proper name so it doesn't give us that error. And then we're going to call it maybe Amazon 5. Let's try it. Stock AMZN already exists. Okay, great. But let's go back to stocks because we did add one. I think we did add one in there by mistake, so we probably have a duplicate right now. Yeah, Amazon. So let's delete that. So you'll see this is really a testing sandbox here, and your data and your logic can all be used. So we're starting to get some neat logic here for our customers to try. So when our customer came in here and tried to create another stock, and that ticker already existed, they're going to be stopped. Now let's come into portfolios where I go, okay, when I try to add a stock into a portfolio, I want to make sure it exists on our list of stocks because we don't allow it if it doesn't. So let's do this. Get a property name. And what we're going to do is let's use the ticker again. So stocks is our collection, portfolios ID stocks. Stock is our, now that is not the case. Yeah, stock is that we're going to get. So do we have stocks? Now what we need to do here is we need to get the new collection because we don't want to deal with portfolio stocks. We want to deal with stocks. So let's get a collection. Is that the one? No. Let's find a collection. Find a collection. All right, there we go. Now what we're going to do is take that, and then we're going to say paths. Get me the paths, which is stocks. And then I'm going to say path, get me the collection. So that's truly our list of stocks. And this is actually stocks in portfolios. So hopefully you're following this. This is our collection because this is our path that we're making the rule of logic on. So we're going to call this our stocks in portfolios is the current one. And our stock that we're adding is the object. So that's the request body stock. We said get us the path, which is our list of stocks, and we're going to get the collection for that path. Now we're going to say stocks, get the object with the ticker, stock.ticker. If the item doesn't exist, then we are going to say, I'm going to remove this because I want to customize this message a bit. The cannot add a stock that does not exist in our list of approved stocks, let's say. So let me get this straight. Get the object with this. If it's there, all's great. If it's not there, no, not allowed to add that. So is that message good? Cannot add a stock. Let's say this. Cannot add stock blah. So it must exist in our list of stocks. Let's say. So when we send it out to the customer, they can maybe, or users, they can comment on the error messages. So that is going to be on the post. Let's update this. So now when I do a test, and I'm going to add it to portfolio 1, and I'm going to try to add something called PPP. We don't have that name. And I'm going to put a, nothing else is probably needed because the first thing we're going to check is the ticker, and it's going to fail, hopefully. Test. There we go. Cannot stock, it must exist in our list of stocks. Whoops, cannot add stock. Whoops, okay, test. Let's do this again. Cannot add stock, it must exist in our list of stocks. Great. So we've added in some logic here. Let's add a comment in here that we can only add a stock to a portfolio if the stock exists in our list in our list of stocks. Update. So we're getting some good logic in here, and this iteration is to show we're getting in some real higher fidelity logic. So let's go back and do our end-to-end test here again. So we didn't add any new paths, so we should be able to use this. So let's do this again. I'm going to come in, and we go back to our post for this. I'm going to add it in, click try it out. So for portfolio 1, our ticker, we're going to call it PPP. And all the rest we don't care because it's going to fail that error. So execute. And you'll see cannot add stock. It must exist in our list of stocks. Now that's a weird message. Cannot add stock string. Why is it doing that? Let's go back to our logic. Cannot add stock. Let's see. Oh, we called the string. Did we call that? Yeah, the name of it was string. Okay, false alarm. All right, so at this point, let's call this our next iteration for our customer because we don't know if they're going to approve of this logic. They may say allow anybody to add in a stock, even if it doesn't exist in the list of stocks. But let's send it out our next iteration. So we're going to deploy it. It's going to be called iteration 3, and I should start adding some info here. Now it checks that a stock has a ticker and can only add a stock to a portfolio if the stock exists. Okay, let's add in our next one. We're going to deploy our next iteration. Again, this is its own backend. Users can still be using beta 1, beta 2, all they like. These are separate iterations and prototypes so that you have some traceability to your previous prototypes. So let's go in. We're going to try our stock right now. Let's see if that worked. So we're going to go stocks. We're going to need our new full access API key. Paste that in. Now, if I do a get on my stocks, you'll see we have Amazon and Tesla still. Let's call post. And I'm going to call this JSON. And I'm going to call this my name. Let me grab this in here so it's easier to just grab an example of one. All right. Give us a little more room here. Okay. And then one more curly bracket. Let me post this, tab this out of touch. Okay, so we're going to now try to add a stock. And it's number 3. Let's test our error handling. We're not going to put in a ticker. And we're going to say post. And you'll see here the ticker, the name. Let's see on stocks. If we go back to our list here on stocks, we said if the stock name, give it an error. Oh, if the ticker already exists. So that we weren't testing for, my mistake. So what we're testing for is here is an empty name, and the ticker is AMZN. So let's post to test our logic. If we put in an empty name, it should say you need a name. There, stock name must be specified. So I'm going to call this Amazon. Now, if we put in a name, the next test we said was, hey, we're not allowed to going to put in another ticker by that same name. Yes, great, 400 error, can't do that. So that's good. Now let's test our other logic, which was we can't add in a stock to our portfolio unless it existed. So let's grab that. Oops. Grab this API. I'm going to come back here. So we're going to go portfolio 1. And if I do a get to help me remember what one is in here. Oops, that's a funny thing with Postman. So if I do a get, we had Amazon. So I don't lead you astray again, let's validate the logic. It's going to come in and it says we can only add stock to a portfolio if it exists in our list. Amazon exists and we know Tesla exists. So let's do a post. And I'm going to do, let's say we're going to call this, we don't even need this actually, but we'll keep it there for now, ticker. And we know it already has an Amazon, but we're going to say PPP is the ticker. This should not be allowed. TESLA. Yeah, this should not be allowed because PPP is not a valid ticker. Cannot add stock Tesla because it must exist on our list of stocks. Okay, so our logic is now coming together, and we now will send this out to the customer for review, and they can call us up, chat about it, or give us some info on how they'd like to proceed with next iteration. And that concludes this one where we started adding in some logic and started having some fun. Thank you.